The first Sunday, he didn't show up. I sat there until the café lights dimmed. I remember the slow, quiet dread of watching my coffee go cold. That's how it started, you know? Not with a fight or a goodbye. Just silence, and the realization that for months I had been living for a single day of the week, a single person. I called him Sunday, not to his face, to my journal, in my head. Sunday was the name for the feeling. Sunday was the man who walked into the rainy bean at 10 a.m., Seattle mist clinging to his jacket, his smile like a break in the clouds. He'd slide into the corner booth across from me, and for those few hours, his entire world seemed to shrink to the space between our coffee cups. His phone stayed face down. He never checked the time. He listened like my words were the only ones he'd hear all week. He remembered the name of my cactus I'd nervously mentioned once. He asked if my boss was still breathing down my neck about the quarterly reports. On Sundays, I felt seen, so utterly and completely seen. But Monday through Saturday, he was a ghost, a man who existed only in the vague, carefully phrased sentences he'd let slip. A life of meetings I couldn't picture, friends I'd never meet, a home address I didn't know. His texts were sparse, polite, and always ended with the same unspoken wall. I told myself it was a complicated situation. I told myself he needed time. I told myself that the depth in his eyes on Sundays was worth the silence of the other 6 days. I was a fool, a hopeful, starving fool. The Sunday he was absent, I went through every stage of panic in that sticky vinyl booth. He's late, he's in traffic, he's had an emergency. My fingers trembled as I typed a simple, "Hey, everything okay?" The message sat there, unread. The blue ticks never appeared. That's when the cold truth started to seep in, slow as the rain down the window. I walked home in a drenching downpour, but I barely felt it. The emptiness was louder. I had built a cathedral of hope around 1 day a week, and it had just collapsed into dust. I didn't cry. I just felt stupid. The next Sunday, I went back, a masochist's pilgrimage. I ordered his usual drink by mistake, and the taste of his black coffee with 1 sugar made my throat tight. The waitress, Marie, gave me a pitying look she tried to hide. She'd seen it all. The hopeful first dates, the messy breakups, the lonely regulars. Now, she saw me, the girl who got left in a corner booth. I gave it 1 more week, 1 more Sunday of staring at the door, my heart doing a sickening lurch every time the bell chimed. It was never him. The hope was a physical pain, a bruise on my sternum. And then, I stopped going. I had to. It was like quitting a drug. The withdrawal was brutal. Sundays stretched out, long and hollow. I'd clean my apartment with a frantic energy. I'd call my sister in Ohio and talk too fast. I'd try to read, but the words blurred. All I could see was his slow smile, the way he'd run a hand through his hair when he was thinking, the sound of his laugh, soft and private. I was mourning a ghost, a man who only ever existed in fragments. The worst part? I didn't even have a real reason to be angry. He never promised me anything. He never lied. He just showed up. Until he didn't. And that's the lesson, isn't it? Some people don't come into your life to stay. They're a temporary shelter. A beautiful, warm, convincing shelter from the storm of your own loneliness. You mistake it for a home. You start to arrange your furniture, hang pictures on the walls. But it was never yours. It was just a rental. And when the lease is up, they simply reclaim the key. It took months of empty Sundays to understand what he really was. A mirror. He showed me how good it could feel to be listened to be chosen, even for a few hours. He showed me the capacity for love I still had inside me, dusty and unused. He woke it up, and then he left me alone with it. That was the gift, the cruel, beautiful gift. He left me alone with this awakened, roaring need for connection, and the slowly dawning, solid truth that I deserved more than just the crumbs of a single day. More than fragments of a man, I deserved the whole week. The messy, complicated, everyday reality of someone who wouldn't disappear when the clock struck midnight. One rainy Tuesday, months later, I was walking to a new grocery store, taking a different route. I passed a small park, and there he was. Sunday. He was sitting on a bench, laughing. A little girl with his same eyes was on his shoulders, squealing as he pretended to buck her off. A woman stood beside them, her hand resting easily on his back, her smile wide and unguarded. He looked complete, rested, present. This wasn't the quiet, focused man from the café. This was a man in his full life, loud and real and utterly elsewhere. He didn't see me. I stood frozen behind a large maple tree, the bark rough under my palm. My breath hitched, sharp and sudden in my chest. There was no anger, no sadness even, just a profound, staggering clarity. He hadn't been complicated. He hadn't been trapped in some tragic situation. He'd simply had a life, a full, beautiful, ordinary life. And I had been his Sunday escape, a quiet parenthesis, a peaceful hour where he didn't have to be a father, a husband, a whatever he was. I was his secret peace. And you don't get to keep secrets like that. Not forever. I watched for only a moment longer. Then I turned and walked away, my steps quickening on the wet pavement. The cold air burned my lungs, but it felt clean. I didn't look back. That night, I sat in my own living room, the silence different now. It wasn't waiting to be filled by him. It was just my silence. Mine to fill with whatever I chose next. I finally understood the whole story. He loved me only on Sundays, but that wasn't love. That was a vacation from his real life, and I had been a picturesque hotel, a place to visit but never to stay. The wound was real. The embarrassment was deep. But for the first time, beneath the hurt, I felt something solid. A new, quiet strength. He had taught me how something could feel. The warmth, the attention, the electric charge of being truly seen. And then, by leaving, he had taught me the most important part. I deserved more than just the feeling. I deserved the thing itself. The realization didn't fix me overnight. Knowledge isn't a magic switch. It's a seed. It gets planted in the mud of your hurt, and you have to water it yourself, day after gray day, before it breaks the surface. I started small. I took a pottery class on Sunday mornings. My first few attempts were lopsided, collapsing messes, pathetic, muddy symbols of my own emotional state. But my hands learned the clay. The focus required was a mercy. It left no room for thoughts of him. One Sunday, I pulled a slightly less lopsided bowl from the kiln. It was ugly, but it was solid. It would hold something. I felt a flicker of something I hadn't in months. Quiet pride. I let my friends set me up on a Saturday night date. It was awkward. The guy talked about his fantasy football league for 40 minutes straight. But I laughed, genuinely, at how terrible it was. And when I drove home alone, I didn't feel empty. I felt amused. I had survived a Saturday without the shadow of Sunday hanging over it. I began writing again. Not in a journal about him, but short stories. I filled pages with characters who were whole, who fought for things, who weren't waiting for a weekly visitation of love. I gave them the courage I was trying to find. Then, one Thursday, Marie from the Rainy Bean texted me. A fluke. She was clearing out the lost and found, and found a scarf she swore was mine from last fall. Did I want it? My heart hammered against my ribs. Going back there felt like walking into a tomb, but I heard that new, quiet voice inside. Don't let a place hold power over you. It's just a building. I went on a Wednesday afternoon. The light was different, brighter, noisy. A group of students were arguing about philosophy in the booth he and I used to share. The scene was so ordinary, it was disorienting. This place wasn't a shrine. It was just a café. Marie smiled, warm and knowing. She handed me the scarf, a soft blue wool. "You look good," she said, her voice low. "Lighter." "Thanks," I said, and I meant it. I almost left, but then I turned back. "Marie, did he ever come back after that last Sunday?" She wiped the counter, her expression turning careful. She nodded just once. "Yeah, once. Maybe a month after. He came in, looked around the corner, sat there for an hour, just waiting. He looked rough. When he left a big tip and said to tell you." She trailed off. My mouth went dry. "Tell me what?" He said, "Tell her I'm sorry it could only be Sundays." Marie shrugged, a gesture of weary wisdom. "I didn't have your number then, and it didn't seem like the kind of message that needed delivering." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The words hung in the air between us. Sorry it could only be Sundays. An epitaph for a ghost relationship. It was the closest thing to closure I would ever get. It wasn't an explanation. It was a confirmation. "Thank you," I whispered, "for not telling me until now." She reached over and patted my hand. "You were already gone by then, honey. You just didn't know it yet." I walked out, the scarf in my hands. The late afternoon sun had broken through the Seattle clouds, casting the wet streets in a golden, temporary glow. I didn't feel like crying. I felt free. The apology, heard years too late, was the final knot coming undone. He had known. He had known all along that what he was offering wasn't enough, and he'd taken it anyway. And I had accepted it. We were both complicit. But I was the only one who had to live with the aftermath. And I was. I was living. The story doesn't end with me meeting someone new right away. This isn't that kind of fairy tale. It ends with a series of ordinary, beautiful victories. It's a Sunday, but I don't notice until I look at my phone. I'm in my own kitchen, sunlight streaming in, flour dusting the air. I'm attempting a complicated recipe, and music is playing too loud. I'm singing along, off-key. My phone buzzes on the counter. It's a text from a man I've been seeing for a few weeks. His name is Ben. He's a teacher. He sends me bad puns on a Tuesday afternoon just to make me groan. He calls me on a Wednesday night because he wants to hear about my day. He exists gloriously, messily, across all 7 days of the week. His text reads, "Thinking of you. And also, if you have any chocolate chips, I'm morally obligated to come help you eat them." I smile. A real, full-face smile that reaches my eyes and warms my whole chest. I look at the mess around me, the sunshine, the text. This is not a fragment. This is not a single precious day hoarded like a secret. This is my life. Finally. I type back, my fingers sure and steady. "I have an entire bag, and I happen to believe in moral obligations. Come over." I press send, and there's no anxiety, no waiting for a reply that might not come for days, no calculating what this means for next Sunday. It's just a text, an invitation into my real, ongoing, wonderfully mundane life. I put the phone down and go back to my baking. The memory of the man from Sundays passes through my mind, not as a stab of pain, but as a soft, faded photograph. I feel no bitterness, just a gentle, profound gratitude. He taught me the shape of the hole in my heart, and by leaving, He forced me to grow big enough to fill it myself, so that when something real, something whole, finally came along, I was ready, not desperate, not starving, just ready. The oven timer dings, the doorbell rings, and my week, all 7 days of it, wide open and full of promise, begins.